His Majesty the King calls on all political parties and forces to take part in the upcoming parliamentary elections, saying if the people want change, the next parliament is the answer. Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani of Qatar and his wife crossed into the Gaza Strip, leading a large delegation, and Israel says it is astounding that Qatar is on sides. And the US President and his Republican rival neck and neck in recent polls is the third and final televised debate on foreign policy to appeal to millions of voters. Good evening, you're watching the news. His Majesty the King has called on all political parties and forces to take part in the upcoming parliamentary elections, saying the next parliament will determine the formation of the new parliamentary government and future political reforms and socio-economic policies. Addressing a gathering of some 3,000 people at the royal courts, including civil society sectors and state institutions, His Majesty said if the people want to change Jordan for the better, there is a chance and there is a way. And that chance is the upcoming elections, and the way is through the next parliament. Alia Tokan has more.
The King's landmark speech touched on an array of national issues, reform and the significance of the upcoming parliamentary elections, the role of popular mobilization in the reform process, corruption, the economy, what the regime means for some, and his legacy as a highlight. Highlighting the significance of the upcoming early parliamentary elections, His Majesty said they will be held in light of an agreed-upon parliamentary government as the end goal of Jordan's reform process, which has seen to date wide-ranging constitutional amendments, the establishment of the Constitutional Court, Independent Elections Commission, as well as new key laws governing political life. Calling on citizens and political entities to exercise their civil rights and responsibilities in order to assume ownership of Jordan's future and the democratic process, His Majesty said, citizens' vote in this election will determine the makeup of the next parliament and parliamentary government, thus determining policies and decisions that will affect the life of every citizen. He added that the larger the participation, the greater change will be.
أدرك تماماً إنه كل عملية تحديث أو تغيير يرافقها بعض القلق من المجهول، وهذا أمر طبيعي. المطالب الشعبية تركزت خلال العام ونصف الماضي على تعزيز حق المواطنين في المشاركة الفاعلة في عملية صنع القرارات اللي تؤثر عليهم وعلى مستقبلهم، وإحنا ملتزمين بضمان هذا الحق للمواطنين.
The King also called on political parties and forces to organize themselves as quickly as possible to build their electoral platforms for the next 4 years and explain to voters what policies and additional reforms they seek. His Majesty urged focus on the real challenges facing Jordan, such as poverty and unemployment, public debt and budget deficit, tax reform, further development of the election system, water and energy challenges, health, education, transport, and other services. The King addressed the Hirak, or popular mobilization, and its positive role in the ongoing reform process, while at the same time warning against empty slogans, opportunism, and manipulation of economic hardships and popular sentiment.
وصار من الضروري أن نميز بين معارضة وطنية بناءة وحراك إيجابي، وبين معارضة وحراك سلبي لا يخدم مسيرة الإصلاح ومستقبل الوطن. المعارضة البناءة والحراك الإيجابي طموح، مشروع ومطلوب، أما الحراك السلبي والشعارات الفارغة ومحاولات إثارة الفتنة والفوضى فهذه مرفوضة، وعلينا أن نتذكر أن الشعارات البراقة ليست هي الحل، أن العقليات الرجعية والمتطرفة وغير المتسامحة هي غير أمينة على مستقبل أبنائنا.
On corruption, His Majesty reaffirmed the serious efforts being exerted to combat the problem, while warning against public opinion trials that deny real justice. And on the budget deficit and public debt, the King noted that while until early 2011, increased government spending was a result of policies to upgrade health, education and infrastructure, as well as pensions and protect citizens' purchasing power, it was the disruption in Egyptian gas supply over the past 2 years that caused unprecedented strain on public finances. And in reference to slogans recently raised by some protesters, the King offered a reflection on the nature of the Jordanian state, the role of Hashemite leadership, as well as his role as king.
وكلكم تعرفوا إني ابن القوات المسلحة والجيش العربي. الجيش اللي فيه من كل مكونات الشعب الأردني. في الجيش قضيت شبابي بين الزرقاء والقطراني والبادية وكل مكان في الأردن. لذلك أنا بعرف أبناء شعبي لأني عشت بينهم ومثل أي واحد منهم، وبعرف همومهم وطموحاتهم. ومنذ اليوم الأول من شرف الخدمة في الجيش العربي نظرت نفسي لخدمة هذا الوطن اللي يستحق كل واحد منا أن يخدمه بكل ما يستطيع.
His Majesty paid tribute to the unforgettable sacrifices that allowed Jordan to overcome the impossible, saying every individual in this society is part of the regime, which is the state in all its institutions and agencies, under the umbrella of the Constitution. Jordan, he added, is not the accomplishment of a single individual or a single entity. It is the cumulative achievement of every Jordanian across generations. Alia Tuqan, News at 10.
The King has instructed Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour to release detainees arrested during protests. His Majesty said the detained protesters shall be freed in accordance with the prevailing laws. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour vowed zero tolerance against any attempt to tamper with the upcoming parliamentary elections and pledged the polls will be fair and transparent. Mansour was addressing a meeting with heads of official media, chief editors of local dailies and columnists. He said the King's directives are clear. Elections will be fair. He stressed the government shall not wait for complaints on any possible violation. Rather, it will look for and pinpoint wrongdoing, if any. He said the Independent Elections Commission has the exclusive mandate to hold and oversee the elections, while the government's role will be strictly supportive. On the recently endorsed Press and Publications Law, Mansour said the legislation is fully binding to all, and his government will have no choice but to implement its provisions, but will use its goodwill. He called on media to be open to all views and opinions, both positive and negative, in the run-up for elections, as long as those voicing their opinions abide by the law and the Constitution. Police have apprehended 7 Syrian nationals along with 35 illegal wireless high-tech and long-range communication devices, in addition to satellite-linked receivers. The 7 armed men were arrested in Amman and Irbid. The Public Security Department acted on a tip-off received last Sunday about a man in Amman area with sophisticated wireless communications equipment in his possession. The department kept a close watch on the suspect until security personnel busted him at his home. The suspect admitted he has 6 other accomplices living in various parts of Amman, except one residing in Irbid. Further investigations are underway. On the occasion of Eid al-Adha, Her Majesty Queen Rania visited the Pediatric Department of the King Hussein Cancer Center, KHCC, to give out gifts to young patients. Her Majesty toured the center's facilities and was briefed on the latest medical equipment available for cancer treatment and diagnosis. Accompanying her on the visit, Their Royal Highnesses Princess Ghida Talal, Chairperson of the King Hussein Cancer Foundation, and Princess Dina Miraid, Director General of the Foundation, as well as Dr. Asim Mansour, Director General of KHCC. The gift distribution ceremony is an annual tradition at KHCC on religious and national holidays. It constitutes an integral part in the psychological and spiritual support that the center's youngest patients need in order to cope with their oftentimes lengthy treatment. Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, the Emir of Qatar, and his wife Sheikha Moza crossed into Gaza Strip from Egypt at the head of a large delegation. The Emir and his large delegation were greeted by Hamas honor guard, while Palestinian and Qatari flags decorated the route on the main road north to Gaza City. Qatar said the visit is a humanitarian one to inaugurate $250 million worth of reconstruction projects. The Palestinian Authority said it hoped the visit would not undermine efforts to rebuild Palestinian unity or signal approval for a separate Palestinian territory. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh denied Hamas is seeking to create its own state in the tiny enclave which is under Israeli blockade. An Israeli Foreign Ministry spokesman said it was astounding that Qatar was taking sides.
No one understands why he should side with Hamas over Fatah, why he would not provide help and assistance to Palestinians in general, but rather to Hamas. No one understands why he would fund an organization which has become notorious with committing suicide bombings and firing rockets on civilians. By hugging Hamas, the Emir of Qatar is really someone who has thrown peace under the bus.
We stay with the Gaza Strip and Greek activists on a ship that was intercepted by Israeli forces on Saturday while attempting to sail to Gaza and break the blockade have released a video of their experience at sea. The activists said they were tasered and handcuffed by Israeli forces. They also said at least 2 vessels and helicopters were used in the operation to seize their ship. 2 members of parliament were also on board the SV Estelle that was intercepted and escorted to the Israeli port of Ashdod by the Israeli Navy. A former Canadian MP continues to be detained in Israel with many of the other crew members of the
The blockade on Gaza must be broken. This disgrace must end. Israel must be put against the wall by the international community and be forced to change its policy, since it doesn't understand any other way.
Over to Syria, where government forces have reportedly killed at least 20 people when they shelled a bakery in a neighborhood under rebel control in the contested northern city of Aleppo. Opposition activists reported the incident, saying 2 shells hit the bakery located in the eastern Hanano neighborhood in the afternoon. The activists said the Free Syrian Army fighters were guarding it at that time. Elsewhere, unofficial video showed what it said to be the aftermath of an airstrike in the Maret al-Nu'man area of Idlib province. Another video showed rebel fighters shooting machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades at what they claim were government forces in the area of Wadi ad-Dif. Syrian rebels are battling to seize an army base close to the main north-south highway and say its capture would be a big step towards creating a safe zone. On the Turkish-Syrian borders, an anti-aircraft shell was fired from Syria, hitting a health center across the border in the Rihanli district of Turkey's province. CNN Turk reported the attack but did not report any injuries. The TV channel also said other shells landed at homes near the health center. Turkey has bolstered its military presence along border with Syria and has been responding in kind to gunfire and mortar shells in its territory from fighting between Syrian rebels and government forces. The UN Refugee Agency, meanwhile, expects the number of Syrian refugees to reach 700,000 by the end of this year. UNHCR said Lebanon has become the third of Syria's neighbors after Turkey and Jordan to register more than 100,000 refugees from Syria's civil war. In all, more than 358,000 Syrians fleeing the conflict have registered in 4 neighboring states, including Iraq, and tens of thousands more fled but did not seek international assistance. Almost 7,000 Syrian refugees have registered in North Africa. Nearly all of them are in Egypt, but the Egyptian government said there are up to 150,000 Syrians in the country who may still seek refugee status if their money or visas run out.
Really important for us to register people. As soon as they get registered, we can determine what kind of assistance they need, and many are really in dire need of assistance. So we're hoping this can resume soon and that things will settle down in Lebanon so that we can continue our aid effort, which is also helps with stability.
European Union Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton called on Lebanon's political leaders to work on resolving their political divisions through dialogue to ensure stability. Ashton said it is the EU's hope that Lebanon will be unified and the violence that flared following last week's assassination of senior Lebanese security official Wissam al-Hassan would come to an end. Ashton was speaking in the capital, Beirut, after meeting with Lebanese President Michel Sleiman and Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri. He stopped in Beirut as part of a Middle Eastern tour to discuss the crisis in Syria and the recent violence in Lebanon.
I have expressed full European Union support for the unity of the country. Such acts of terrorism are designed to provoke reaction and to create tensions. I welcome the efforts undertaken to maintain stability through national dialogue, and I encourage all political leaders to work towards constructive solutions to the main challenges that face Lebanon today. At such times, the importance of robust state institutions that continue to ensure security and provide services cannot be understated.
After 2 nights of fighting between Sunni and Alawite gunmen, the Lebanese army arranged a ceasefire in the northern of Tripoli. At least 10 people have been killed and 65 wounded in clashes in Tripoli, despite a heavy deployment of troops backed by tanks and armored personnel carriers. The army said in a statement it had arrested 100 people since Sunday, including 34 Syrians and 4 Palestinians, security operation aimed at getting guns off the streets. It said soldiers raided properties in Beirut and Tripoli where gunmen were sheltering and seized weapons. 15 members of the security forces had been wounded by gunfire. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu paid a visit to the Israeli settlement of Gilo in a defiant prelude to talks with EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs Catherine Ashton. Ashton is due to hold talks with Netanyahu tomorrow and has expressed her deep regret about the planned expansion of Gilo. Last week, Israel issued a detailed plan for 797 additional homes in Gilo, an urban complex built in a part of the occupied West Bank. Israel considered all of Jerusalem, including the annexed eastern sector and nearby settlements, as its capital, a position not accepted internationally. Days before what should be a celebration of the Eid for Iraqis, Country today mourned dozens who were killed in car bombs and mortar attacks. At least 7 people were killed after 2 mortar shells struck a residential area in the northwest Baghdad suburb of Jikok. 16 other people were injured. Security forces said 3 parked car bombs in 2 residential areas detonated, causing damage to surrounding houses and cars. A similar attack also occurred in the Shia district of Sharla when 4 parked car bombs went off simultaneously, killing 8 people and wounding some 30 others. With 2 weeks left until Election Day in the U.S., the final debate between President Barack Obama and Republican opponent Mitt Romney, this time on foreign policy, gave the 2 men a last chance to appeal to millions of voters. Neither man were believed to throw a knockout punch or make a noticeable gaffe as they clashed over Israel, Iran, Russia, and the size of the U.S. Navy at Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida. The U.S. public offered varying views on who won the debate, while the U.S. media was tame in headlines. The New York Times headline read, "Obama and Romney bristle over foreign policy." And USA Today said, "Rivals duel over global leadership." Snap polls declared Obama the winner, but 60% of people in a CNN survey said Romney was capable of being commander-in-chief. A CBS News poll said 53% believed Obama won the debate versus 23% for Romney and 24% calling it a draw. Respondents in the CNN poll were split over whether the debate would influence their votes. The report looks at the reactions of students who gathered at Lynn University.
Students gathered at Florida's Lynn University on Monday night, where the final presidential debate was being held. President Barack Obama and Republican rival Mitt Romney went head-to-head on foreign policy in a high-stakes debate just weeks before the election. Students here said both candidates had strong points, although some found fault in Romney's performance.
He contradicted himself throughout the whole debate because he kept mentioning how we need peace, but he wants to expand military forces. Peace is not expanding military forces. If you believe in expanding military forces, that means you believe in violence.
It was a packed house at this bar in Washington as voters gathered to watch the debate. For some, it was an aggressive exchange as Obama went on the attack.
I think it was pretty heated. There were some funny moments. Obama kind of made fun of Romney with the bayonets comment. And I think Obama in the beginning was very strong. And later on in the debate, I think it was kind of evened out a little bit.
It was a similar story here in Los Angeles, where voters thought both candidates performed strongly.
It was a draw. Obama was pretty good. Pretty good. I just don't agree with the guy, that's all. But he did pretty good.
Tonight's debate was awesome. Like, tonight's debate, I think, really added to my indecision.
Polls suggest Obama and Romney are neck and neck as America prepares to vote on November the 6th.
Daniel Craig is returning as James Bond in the 23rd installment of the 007 series, which will have its world premiere tonight. Skyfall is the movie, and it is Craig's 3rd time out as the British Secret. The movie sees Bond's allegiance to M, played by Dame Judi Dench, challenged as her past comes back to haunt her. And after turning down a past offer to play opposite Bond, Javier Bardem appears as the villain. To date, the 22 Bond films amassed $5.1 billion at the worldwide box office. Skyfall opens in UK theaters on the 26th and in the United States on November 9th. Celtic is facing Barcelona in the Champions League Group G clash in Barcelona, Spain. The Scottish champions, second in the group, 2009 and 2011 winners after 2 matches, have never managed a win on 12 trips to the Iberian nation, slumping to 9 defeats and 3 draws. Favourites Barca are unbeaten in 17 European home outings, winning 14, back to a 2-1 defeat against Rubin Kazan in October 2009. Finally, to the weather outlook. It continues to be cool and partly cloudy tonight with northwesterly light winds. Tomorrow, weather conditions prevail with partly cloudy skies and a chance for rain in the evening. Winds will be southeasterly changing to southwesterly moderate. The Gulf of Aqaba can expect moderate weather tomorrow with northerly moderate winds and slightly choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And for a quick recap of the main headlines. His Majesty the King calls on all political parties and forces to take part in the upcoming parliamentary elections, saying if the people want change, the next parliament is the answer. Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani of Qatar, his wife, crossed into the Gaza Strip leading a large delegation, and Israel says it is astounding that Qatar is taking sides. And the U.S. president and his Republican rival neck and neck in recent polls is the third and final televised debate on foreign policy to appeal to millions of voters. That's all the news for tonight. I'm Iman Majali. For the latest, join us tomorrow, same time. Have a good night.